So today we're going to continue to take a look at a scenario where all 50 US states become independent countries. Now I did a part 1 on this a few weeks ago, and it did much better than I thought it would. And a lot of you wanted to see a part 2, and so here we are. I read through a lot of your comments and your suggestions, and I really liked them, and so I will try to incorporate as many of them into this video as I can. So once again, thank you all for your support on the last video. And before we get into this one, I would like to ask you to leave a like. Let's try and get this video to 100 likes. The last video barely got to 50, so let's try and double that. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new. All the support is greatly appreciated as we try to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of this year. And so yeah, let's get right into the scenario. So in the last video, we saw a large war break out in the northeast between Virginia and West Virginia. And we saw a lot of other countries joining on their respective sides, such as Pennsylvania and Ohio on the side of West Virginia, and New York, Maryland, and North Carolina on the side of Virginia. We also saw a large war between Texas, California, Arizona, Nevada, and Mexico. And we saw that Texas grew a lot. They annexed New Mexico and Oklahoma, and a lot of northern Mexico. Utah was left to only this here. And that's really all that happened. And now let's get into this video. In the last video, we saw a lot of unionization up here in the Pacific Northwest in Cascadia. And so both these unions are actually going to be uniting together to form one large country. And now let's get into the first war. We actually have Wisconsin declaring war on Michigan as they want to take back the Upper Peninsula. And so right away, Wisconsin troops begin to move into the Upper Peninsula. And at first, they have a lot of success as Michigan really wasn't expecting this. But once Michigan becomes mobilized, they're more powerful, and so they fully liberate themselves. And then they begin to push into Wisconsin, and this goes very well for them. They take a lot of the areas in the north and along the Great Lakes until they surrender, leaving the border something like this. Wisconsin still lives, but they are very small, and Michigan has taken a lot of land out of Wisconsin. Now, some countries don't like Michigan's expansion, but we have Ohio, Illinois, and Indiana all joined together now to help out Wisconsin, take back Michigan, as relations in this area are very tense. We have New York and Virginia, as well as Maryland, joining on the side of Virginia, as they don't really like Ohio and Pennsylvania. And we actually have Iowa and Minnesota joining on the side of the red team as well, as they don't really like Michigan either. So now we once again have one large northeastern war, and let's get right into this fighting. Right away, blue team troops begin to take out the area that used to be Pennsylvania, and this goes quite well for them as they begin to push into Ohio, and Michigan continues their push into Wisconsin as all the troops are already over here. Ohio, Illinois, and Indiana also begin to push into southern Michigan. Ohio is mainly focused in on New York and Virginia, but they do send some supplies over here, but not very many. Illinois is mostly going to be focused in up here as Wisconsin just surrendered over to Michigan, and they begin to push into their own country. They take out Chicago, and it doesn't go very well for there as they wrap around Lake Michigan. From there, they completely push out the red team from Michigan, and they begin to push into Minnesota, cutting them off from Lake Superior. They also push down south from Michigan, cutting them off completely from all of the Great Lakes. After a few more weeks of fighting, the front lines look something like this, and it's going very well for the blue team. We now have the surrender of Ohio, Indiana, as well as Minnesota. And for a few more weeks they fight in Illinois and Iowa, before eventually both of these countries surrender. So now let's take a look at a possible peace treaty for this war. So here's the peace treaty from that war. New York, Maryland, and Virginia all got lots of land out of Ohio. And Ohio, Illinois, and Indiana all united together as they're not doing very well after that war. And we saw that Michigan grew a lot, and they got land out of every red team country, and they're now forming some kind of Michigan empire. I know a lot of you wanted to see that, so there you go. Now we actually see Minnesota and the Dakotas uniting into one. A lot of these countries aren't doing very well in Minnesota because they just got out of a war. And the Dakotas, I don't know, they just weren't doing well. So yeah, they united together. And now it's time for another war. But this time, it's actually going to be a civil war. In the last video, I hinted that Arizona might not be able to keep all of the land that they gained in the war against Mexico. And so here we are going to be seeing just why. So a lot of the land they gained from Mexico as well as Utah are rebelling against the Arizona government. But now we actually have another country that is joining this war, and it's going to be on their own side, and that's going to be none other than Texas. Now you might be asking, why is Texas going to join this war? That's because they're land hungry and they want to expand their empire. And so right away they begin to move into Arizona, as well as these rebel groups in the south, as well as in the north. The north one falls pretty quickly, and they continue to push into mainland Arizona. But the southern one puts up a bit more of a fight, but eventually it does capitulate over to Texas. From there, they continue to fight against Arizona, and this goes exactly how you think it would, and it does not end very well for Arizona. And in this peace treaty, Texas annexes all of Arizona. Now, one last country that's going to be expanding greatly and forming another type of empire is going to be none other than Florida, as they declare war on the Alabama-Mississippi Union and Georgia at the same time. This isn't going to go very well for the blue team, as Florida is quite powerful, and Alabama-Mississippi is very weak. Georgia is moderately strong, and they will put up a bit more of a fight, but the Alabama-Mississippi Union will lose almost all of their land. Florida does very well in Alabama-Mississippi, and they force the country into surrendering, but in Georgia it's a different story, as it takes a lot more effort to get any land. Eventually they are forced to make peace with them. Entering this peace treaty, Florida gains a lot of land in southern Alabama-Mississippi, as well as southern Georgia. Both countries still exist. Alabama-Mississippi is not doing very well, and we'll see what happens to them in the future. But Georgia is mostly okay. They're not as good as they once were, but they should survive. Next, Florida still wants to expand. And where are they going to expand? Into the Caribbean Sea. They annex the Bahamas, Haiti, Dominican Republic, as well as Puerto Rico, as well as Jamaica, and they invade Cuba, and it goes very well for them. None of these countries are really that strong, and they take all of them out pretty easily. The war went very fast, and there was really no point to even showing it. So, this is now the Floridan Empire. You can call it that, you can call it whatever you want. And now, with the rise of a lot of these great, powerful empires, they pose a threat to a lot of the weaker countries. And a lot of them are going to begin to form unions. Tennessee and Kentucky unite. Utah, Colorado, and Wyoming all unite. And we see Nevada not doing too well, and they actually go ahead and unite with California. And so I think that's going to be it for today's video. So let me know how you liked it in the comments. Leave any suggestions for the next video, and let me know if you do actually want to see a part 3. I'm actually having a lot of fun doing this series, and so let me know if you want to see more. Thank you all again for your support on the last video, as I did much better than I ever thought it would. Leave any other video suggestions in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.